With the success of Artemis 2 under their belt, NASA is carrying a ton of momentum into the next phase of their return to the moon. But that leaves a lot of us wondering, what comes next? The answer is complicated, and it involves one of the biggest competitions ever staged between two titans of American industry. Artemis 3 will push NASA and their partners to the absolute limits because their place as the global leader in space exploration is no longer guaranteed, and the competition is moving fast. That means a lot of work has to get done in a very short amount of time. As soon as the smoke cleared from Artemis 2, NASA began assessing the condition of their mobile launch tower. It had been reinforced following heavy damage from Artemis 1, with the goal of slashing turnaround times between SLS launches. All the critical pieces for Artemis 3, the booster engines, upper stage, and Orion spacecraft have already been completed or are well along. NASA is not wasting any time putting them together, but there's an extra complication here that's somewhat beyond NASA's full control. To make Artemis 3 happen, they need more than just SLS and Orion. They need a moonlander, and this is where things get really interesting. Back in 2021, SpaceX won a NASA contract to turn their Starship upper stage into the human landing system for Artemis. At the time, Starship was still early prototypes, hopping a few kilometers up and often exploding on landing. But over the past few years, we've seen massive progress. Starship has flown higher, faster, and achieved more successful water landings. It's genuinely amazing and unprecedented. Still, turning it into a reliable vehicle that can safely land humans on the moon has taken longer than Elon Musk originally promised, which, in hindsight, we probably should have expected. In May 2023, after Starship's first integrated flight struggles, NASA hedged its bets. They awarded a second lunar lander contract to Blue Origin. Jeff Bezos' company, known then for suborbital tourist flights, brought serious ambitions with New Glenn and their Blue Moon lander. Fast forward to 2026. Blue Origin has caught up in dramatic fashion. New Glenn's second flight in late 2025 nailed the booster landing on a floating platform and sent payloads toward Mars. Both companies are now in a full-throttle race. NASA has decided that one or both of these moonlanders will get tested on Artemis 3. It all depends on who can deliver on time for the 2027 window. The mission profile has changed from the old plan of jumping straight to a lunar landing. That was risky, figuring things out with people already near the moon. The new plan keeps everyone closer to Earth's safety net while still advancing the program hard. Artemis 3 will begin with the familiar sight of 4 astronauts strapped into Orion on top of the giant orange SLS rocket. But this time they're not heading to the moon right away. Instead, the focus is on testing the landers in low Earth orbit. Alongside SLS/Orion, expect 1 or 2 additional heavy lift launches to get the Starship, HLS and/or Blue Moon into position. This sets up a battle of the Titans that will be incredible to watch. NASA is moving full speed ahead on SLS hardware. The core stage just shipped to Kennedy in April 2026, and the pressure is on the commercial partners to match that pace. This isn't about planting a flag and calling it a day. It's about building real capability and staying ahead in the lunar environment, especially with China pushing their own moon base plans. Artemis 3 is the crucial next step in that bigger story. Here's what that looks like in practice. Artemis 3 will kick off with 1 or 2 giant commercial rockets lifting off first. For this scenario, let's stay positive and assume both lander candidates are ready, because then we can paint the full picture of this epic competition. The first launches will send the Lunar Starship and Blue Moon on their way. These vehicles will deploy their upper stage landers into low Earth orbit. But there's a huge challenge right away. Lunar Starship and Blue Moon are massive. They burn an incredible amount of fuel just getting from Earth to the moon. Before they can do any serious work, they need to prove they can refuel in space. Otherwise, there won't be enough propellant to get the astronauts back up off the lunar surface later. So as part of Artemis 3, both companies have to demonstrate successful orbital refueling. For SpaceX, that means launching a second Starship tanker. For Blue Origin, it's a dedicated propellant transport vehicle. That adds even more heavy rocket launches to the mix, followed by complex orbital docking and propellant transfer demos for both landers. No one has ever refueled a large spaceship in orbit before, so pulling this off, especially with 2 different systems, would be a giant leap forward for everyone. Assuming all that checks out, it's time for the SLS to light the sky. This launch will look a lot like Artemis 2, with the familiar orange rocket thundering away from Kennedy. But once Orion reaches space, it won't be heading for the moon. Instead, it will set course to rendezvous with the waiting lander, or landers. The first big test is docking. The landers will be autonomous, but Orion will have a pilot at the controls. They actually practiced something similar on Artemis 2, with Victor Glover steering toward the spent upper stage in a mock docking exercise. That experience will pay off here. In one scenario, Orion approaches Blue Moon from the side and links up with the docking port on the crew cabin at the bottom. The top sections are mostly fuel tanks, giving the crew a more spacious habitation module than the old Apollo lunar module, noticeably bigger and more livable. In the other scenario, things look different with Lunar Starship. The docking port sits in the nose, so once the crew transfers through, they step directly into a huge, wide-open flight deck that's 9 meters across and several meters tall. There's a luxurious amount of space compared to anything we've flown before. Once the crew gets settled inside the lander, the real work begins. They'll run a thorough shakedown of all the critical systems: life support, power, propulsion, and communications. They'll likely undock, practice some manual control in orbit, and then redock with Orion. The whole point is to find any problems now, while they're still safely in Earth orbit, instead of discovering them later around the Moon. The original plan had people entering these landers for the first time while already in lunar orbit. That was never a great place to troubleshoot. While inside the landers, the crew will also test the new Axiom Space lunar spacesuits in microgravity for the first time. These Axiom U suits are totally different from what NASA used on the ISS or during Apollo, designed to be far more agile and less clumsy on the lunar surface. They've been tested underwater on Earth, but the real test comes when astronauts take them into the lander airlock and expose them to the vacuum of space. NASA expects all these exercises could take up to 3 weeks. There will be a ton to watch and learn once this mission gets off the ground. But while we wait for Artemis 3 to fly, there's already plenty of action happening right here on the ground. In May 2026, SpaceX is scheduled to test Starship version 3 for the first time from their brand new launch pad system at Starbase in Texas. This is what the company believes will be the first non-prototype Starship, the finished product that can eventually take people to the moon. Of course, they still need to finish building out the interior with all the life support and crew features, but they've got roughly a year to make that happen. Progress on Starship has been rapid and relentless, even if it hasn't always matched the most optimistic timelines. Over at Blue Origin, they've also got a historic launch coming up around the same time frame, a test flight of the Blue Moon Mark 1 prototype. This is the smaller, uncrewed version designed to deliver cargo to the lunar surface. The goal for this mission is straightforward, but critical. Get all the way to the moon and touch down safely. If Blue Origin pulls it off, it will boost confidence at NASA and transform the company from a late arrival into a very serious contender for the crewed landings. Assuming both companies deliver, and we get a successful Artemis 3 with these vehicles tested in Earth orbit, the next milestone comes fast, an uncrewed demonstration landing on the actual moon. Think of it as Artemis 3.5. Once we've proven the lander is safe for humans in orbit, we need to see it land and operate successfully on the lunar surface. Only then can NASA declare a clear winner for the first crewed landing. And there's no time to celebrate because the agency wants to fly Artemis 4, the actual first landing, within about a year of Artemis 3. That means whichever company wins the orbital test has to start cranking out vehicles at a breakneck pace. This is how America is going back to the moon. It's not just another flag-planting exercise, it's about establishing real sustained presence and total capability in the lunar environment. Because there's another great power with serious plans up there and they're not coming to play around. China has its own timeline for a lunar base, and the competition is very real. Artemis 3 is the key stepping stone that will tell us who is ready to lead the way.